What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Standing Guillotine podcast. Today we are going to talk about UFC Fight Night. This was Pavlovich versus Blaydes. Next week we're going to preview Song Simon. That one I think is going to be a lot more interesting of a card than I thought. I had originally looked at it and I was like, I don't know any of the names on here, but as I was doing my prep for the pod this week, I was digging into the backgrounds of a lot of these fighters. And a lot of these fighters have an extremely high finish percentage, and they can finish in multiple ways. So I think we're going to see pretty competitive fights. I'm going to highlight a few that I'm particularly interested in at the end, but I do want to talk Pavlovich Blaydes first. There were a few things I think that were really, really great in this fight. We had a streak of knockouts. This one went super fast. So if we go through, this was a third round KO, so not super fast. The beginning was really slow, but then we hit this streak of two first round knockouts in a row. What should have been another one. Then the women's flyweight bout, which was a great opportunity to take a breather and not watch. Then you had the Bobby Green fight that was a no contest. And then Brad Tavares, Bruno Silva. And then the main event itself. So many of these fights ended very quickly in the first round that I felt like this flew by, other than a few pretty boring fights. Fest. Yeah, absolute snooze fest. I mean, the one 3-rounder that I didn't think was, or there were two that I didn't think were totally boring, and they're actually the first two fights we're going to talk about. So this was the Brady Highstand and Batgirl Dana fight. Highstand was losing. If we look at the judges' scorecards, I looked up this before we hopped on. Dana had the first 2 rounds 10-9, which I agreed with. All 3 judges had it that way. And Brady Highstand was in a bad spot and then just managed to gut it out. He got him up against the cage, was able to move the arm out of the way and just swing and swing and swing and swing. And Dana didn't do enough to cover up, and that's all she wrote. I think that one, in my mind at least, comes down to, okay, who wants it? And this is a young guy in Brady Highstand. Or maybe not super young. I don't know what his actual age is, but he
was 0. Did I say 0-2?
No, 8-2. 0-2. Imagine. But this was his third fight in the UFC. He lost his first one, then he bounced back. So again, if we're continuing along with our theme of wanting to see prospects bounce back, this is a prospect. He bounced back with a decision win last time, and this one where he looked like he was destined to lose, just gutting it out. So you definitely love to see that out of the young prospects. Moving on to the next one, Francis Marshall, William Gomez. This one again, Francis Marshall is considered a prospect. He's now 7-1. He was previously 7-0. This one was a split decision, which I think was actually a little silly. I don't think there was any split in that decision. I don't think there should have been a split. It was very clear that Gomez won rounds 1 and 2. Marshall didn't really get going until round 3. And it was honestly a little bit boring because Gomez stepped off the gas. Neither guy was fighting for a finish at that point, and it was pretty, I don't know, laid back, boring.
I feel like featherweights don't really fight for finishes anyway.
That's fair. I mean, featherweights, it's not like you really have amazing knockout power, right? You're a small, tiny guy. You're 135?
Yeah.
So you don't typically see crazy swinging knockouts. But you do see... Oh, you're looking at the featherweights right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, here. So featherweights, we have... I mean, Brendan Moreno's got knockout power.
Well, that's flyweight. So I guess featherweight you would...
Oh, sorry. Featherweight. Yeah. We were thinking flyweight.
Yeah, well,
featherweight, that's Volkanovski.
Yeah.
Holloway.
So I guess you are looking for knockouts?
I mean, at the top, maybe. But how many of these guys in the lower part? I mean, Edson Barbosa obviously just had that huge KO.
Yeah.
But... I mean, other than that,
flyweight. I had flyweight on my brain, and
as
it came out of my mouth, guys. I was like, I think I'm incorrect.
I always mix up fly and feather because feather just seems lighter. I don't know why. Like fly, obviously smaller.
Yeah, maybe like of the bug.
Yeah, like if you think of fly that way.
Yeah. And then bantam. This doesn't make any sense.
That's like a rooster.
Is it?
Yeah, so it's like a bantam is another word for like a cock, but not like the penis, like the fighting bird.
Oh, so you get like a little bug, and then you get a chicken.
Yeah, and then you get a feather.
And then you get like...
But how's a feather heavier than a whole fucking chicken, dude?
Like an eagle, maybe?
Maybe. Yeah. Like if it's an ostrich feather. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense given that we have Volkanovski as our champ, so maybe they're just got those fucking emu feathers, dude. From the Emu Wars. Rip Australia. But with that brought us to our first featured fight. This was Muhammad Usman and Junior Tafa. And one thing I want to say before we talk about this, because I'm actually very disappointed.
It was actually one of like the only fights I got to watch. So
I'm a little mad that clearly Dana White's been watching our podcast and hasn't shouted us out, because he stole all my fucking picks this week, starting with this one, that rat fucking bastard. He called out Muhammad Usman and Junior Tafa, and then he also called out Jeremiah Wells, Matthew Semmelsberger. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this dude fucking read my picks, and what an asshole. But this one was honestly just such a snooze fest, and I think looking at the nameplates alone, I should have known better than to expect something exciting out of an Usman fight.
yeah,
Unless Tafa was going to knock him out, which he came close to. I'll give him that. Junior Tafa absolutely has knockout power in those hands, and I think that'll play at heavyweight, and I think he'll be fine moving forward. But he literally has zero wrestling game.
yeah. It was when I watched. It was really just Junior Tafa laying on the mat and Muhammad Usman just sitting on him.
Yeah, it wasn't even like he was attempting submissions. He wasn't trying to really do damage. It was just like, I can't get back on my feet because I'm going to get rocked. It was one of the most ugly displays of fighting I've seen in a long time. Muhammad Usman showed no ability to defend striking on his feet. He kept his head right on the center line, and Junior Tafa was able to just throw straight jabs right down the pipe, and Usman just ate him.
Kind of, I mean, his brother's kind of like that too.
In a way, but I feel like you can get away with that when you're fighting like guys who are like we know Usman's theoretically could fight like 1 to 2 divisions up.
Yeah.
Right? But he's cutting way down.
I saw a picture of them next to each other, and you've been teaching science now when we talk about genetics.
Yeah.
Genetics is a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Because Muhammad Usman
is a monster.
is a monster.
Absolute animal. He's a big, scary dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like him with the brothers, like Muhammad definitely stands out.
Yeah.
Like that's not to say Kamaru's not big, because Kamaru would make me look tiny.
Right. But Muhammad
looks
small.
Kamaru looks small. Yeah.
That man's legs are ginormous.
It's terrifying, actually. But
Tree trunk.
so what was really interesting, and I want to get your take on this because I think that this is from an era that you would definitely appreciate. One of the things that I found interesting was I was on Reddit and somebody made the comparison of this fight back to Brock Lesnar, Mark Hunt. So or is it Coleman? Mark Hunt? Yeah, the Australian guy who could strike like crazy, right? Yeah. So what's interesting is Mark Hunt discovered Junior and why am I blanking on Justin? Justin, yeah, he discovered both Tafa brothers and the guy who always does the shoeies.
Tava?
Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah. It's something like that.
No. I'm thinking Tagovailoa. That's fucking football, dude. All right. Tai Tuivasa.
Yeah.
What am I thinking, dude? I was honestly getting Tua Tagovailoa mixed up in my head. Speaking of head trauma, Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, I believe it's Mark Hunt.
Yeah, so he was the guy who discovered them. You would think that with the way his career went.
Yeah.
Yep. The way his career went, you would think that after having fought Lesnar and basically seeing that he had zero ground game and no answer to high-level wrestling, you would think that he would tell his proteges, hey, maybe this might be something you would want to learn.
Pretty sure that was one of Brock Lesnar's last fights.
Yeah.
That's the one that he got bopped for.
Yeah, steroids.
Yeah. Didn't he knock him out?
Who? No, I think it was overturned, but I think it was he just laid on him the whole time.
Right.
Yeah, like literally just, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Brock Lesnar was coming off of, he had like a gastrointestinal problem, and he had shrunken down to like half of his size.
Which is crazy to think about because I can't even imagine a small Brock Lesnar.
Right.
Like, what would skinny Brock Lesnar be? Like, what are the? I need to find Mama Lesnar and be like, hey, can I get those photos?
Yeah.
And see what Brock looked like as a
don't think he
scrawny
ever
ass
was.
teenager. Nah, he probably came out juicing,
Yeah,
frankly.
he came out ginormous. He was on that tit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Mama Lesnar was probably juicing, so that way he could get something through that titty milk. But with Usman Tafa, it was like Tafa never did anything off of his back. He didn't try and turn his hips. He didn't try and explode up. It's like he was completely lost.
Yeah.
So what's crazy, and I was thinking about this morning, it was one of the weirdest thoughts I've ever had. So my son got a splinter in his foot, and he is a huge fighter. Like, will not let anyone come near him with the tweezers to get the splinters out. So my wife's trying to get it out. And I'm late for work at this point. So I'm like, look, I don't have time for this shit. So I put him in a body triangle, not anything like any pressure or anything like that. Just hold him so that my wife can isolate the leg and take the splinter out. My son showed more fighting someone who's like 3 times his weight. No, more than that. 4 times his weight, easily, than Junior Tafa did against Muhammad Usman.
Do you have the splinter?
Oh, we got that fucking splinter. You better believe we got that splinter. And then afterwards, he was talking to me about it today. We were in the car, and he was all, like, grumpy and mad because I held him down. Then he thought about it for a while, and he's like, you know what? Actually, I was being mean. I shouldn't have said all those hurtful things. But, like, at least Junior Tafa could have done that. Like, at least say hurtful shit.
Yeah.
Like, do something.
Yeah.
But, like, my son showed more fight. A 5-year-old gave me more of a difficult time on the mat than Junior Tafa gave Muhammad Usman. That was honestly like, Muhammad looked lost on his feet. I thought he was going to get absolutely bopped. At any second, it looked like one of those 8 million shots he ate to the face was going to be it. And he just did enough to fall forward on top of Tafa, and that was it for the decision.
If I remember correctly, didn't he do that because of the fact that he was like hurting a little bit?
Yeah, round 1 he lost actually on the judges' scorecards. Tafa won round 1.
It kind of like looked like Tafa just like was hoping for that first round finish, and then
just gassed.
Anything that he had in the tank was out.
Yeah,
because those are big boys.
I mean, he was throwing bombs. I'll give him that. I think the first round I thought was super interesting, but as soon as round 2 and round 3 came around, he could do nothing off his back. That's a huge thing that needs to get fixed. But realistically, with the way heavyweight is, do you need to fix your wrestling?
Well, that's just like, I think that's the jump between like the low end of the heavyweight and the high end of heavyweight.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that he's got to get John Jones level of wrestling, right? Because by the time he's even considering, if that was down the road for him, by the time he's even sniffing title contention, there's no way Jones is still around.
Right.
Jones is looking for one last fight, and that's it. So, assuming you don't have to deal with Jones, I mean, we know Cyril Gane has no fucking ground game.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
I don't know if Cyril Gane has any game besides swing my fist.
Sergey Pavlovich, we haven't seen a ground game. That dude looks scary. He looks
dangerous.
He does look scary.
That would be a fun fight. I think him and John Jones would be a fun fight if Stipe doesn't.
I think that Jones does the same thing to Pavlovich as he does to Gane. Or that he did to Gane. I don't think Pavlovich has the ground game. And I don't think Jones is stupid enough to be that much of an ego to say, I'm going to knock out Sergey Pavlovich and end his streak here.
Yeah.
That was Curtis Blaydes' problem.
Yeah.
Curtis Blaydes, to jump ahead here, Curtis Blaydes got knocked out because he stupidly came out and wanted to throw punches when his game is wrestling.
Right.
Curtis Blaydes, the reason why he's been so successful is because he's mixed decently good boxing, not anything amazing, with top-class wrestling against guys who don't know how to wrestle.
Yeah.
So right now, the only people near in the division, or like up in the division, who really actually wrestle, we're talking John Jones, Curtis Blaydes. Really nobody else in the top 15 am I super worried about their wrestling ability. Of course, if you happen to leg trip a guy and fall on top of him, you still have to find a way to get back up. So that's something he will need to fix. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think that it's as important of a skill right now in heavyweight. Yeah. It's definitely not like there's a Brock Lesnar in the division.
Yeah, I don't really know if that was like a heavyweight thing ever.
No, it's usually just let the guys swing.
Yeah, swinging and banging.
Yeah. Like, someone's going to hit the canvas.
The only person I ever really remember, and I could be wrong, I probably am, but like Frank Mir was known for submitting people.
Yep.
Like,
and then Lesnar made him look bad on the ground.
Well,
which was pretty crazy.
the first time they fought, the first time they fought. I think it was like an ankle lock.
Mm-hmm.
He got him like in an ankle lock, and Lesnar just didn't really know jiu-jitsu at that time.
Right.
And then the next time they fought, Lesnar just beat him down. And I think he just knew, like, okay, I can't really let
just absolute lunchboxes.
I can't let my extremities really, because I think if I remember correctly, this is going back. I think Lesnar like almost got caught again.
Yeah.
In a submission the second time, but then he had definitely trained for it.
Right. He definitely had. He was much more refined the second time around, and I also think that was the fight. Mir came in with a pretty heavy knee brace. Mm-hmm. So I think that played a role in not as effective wrestling or ability. It's hard to lock in if you aren't getting full flexion of your knee, which he definitely wasn't.
Speaking of Frank Mir, he's actually, I don't know if that fight happened yet, but he's fighting on the same card as his daughter.
Really?
Yeah.
That is...
Which is like something that he like... I
That's
think this
cool.
is probably going to be the last fight that he ever fights.
Yeah, it's like a legacy
But
thing.
he like, it was his dream to fight.
That's awesome. That's
his
great.
daughter, so he's getting that chance.
Hopefully it doesn't end in an absolutely fucking crippling hospital incident, because he's got to be close to 50.
Yeah, he's old. No, I think he's in his 40s.
But he's up there. Let's find out. Frank.
Because his daughter, I think his daughter's young.
Let's see. How old is Frank Mir? Frank Mir. Oh, he's only 43.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought he was a little bit older.
No, I think his daughter's 18.
But that's still pretty cool. I feel like, I don't know, just that long ago, it seems like it's a completely different life. Like, just Frank Mir, Brock Lesnar, different style. But that was kind of, for me, this fight was that throwback. It was kind of like, this is Lesnar versus Hunt all over again. And as soon as I saw that comment, like, I had just had flashbacks of Mark Hunt absolutely demolishing people and then not knowing how to get up off the ground. That was his, like, Achilles heel. Right. So it's crazy to me that he still has, like, disciples in the fight game.
Yeah.
And they still have developed no fucking ground game.
Well, no, I mean, not to, like, Brock Lesnar was a NCAA wrestling champion.
Yeah. I mean, not to shit on Brock Lesnar at all,
he
but...
ready to go to Minnesota?
Even lesser wrestlers were still able to put or make Mark Hunt look bad on the ground.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just crazy to me that you don't, like, you know that's a hole in your game and you don't teach your proteges to fix that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not to say that Tafas had no training. He could have training, but he looked way into the deep end there, and it could have just been a case of he was gassed.
Or it could have been that maybe the Usmans are just, like, wrestling.
They could be wrestling gods. Yeah. We don't know. Like Muhammad Usman could have made Lesnar look bad. Who knows? I don't think so. But who knows?
Let's not go that far.
Let's definitely not go that far. All right, here's where the show starts to get controversial. Of course, it's with the women's fights. So we have Carol Rosa, Norma Dumont. Now, we said last week that we wanted to stop seeing ranked fighters fighting on the prelim. Mm-hmm. So now that the two cards, or the two women's fights, played themselves out, I'm comfortable in saying that Yasmin Lucindo was the best female fighter that was out there. I'm not mad that she got a spot on the main card. Mm-hmm. She looked great. What I am mad about is that they let Brogan fucking Walker have a spot on the main card. I'm going to say something incredibly rude, and I don't fucking care, because I've been mad about this all week.
Yeah, you've been talking.
I literally went on a fucking rampage Saturday night, and then into Sunday. It literally ruined my next day.
The poor 7-Eleven worker.
Yeah, I walked to 7-Eleven, and I was talking to the guy at 7-Eleven about this, because I had no one to talk to, because my wife doesn't care. She doesn't watch UFC. She doesn't find it entertaining. I don't know what you were doing. You were busy. So I literally had no one to vent to about this. And I was like, give me the mic. Let me record the goddamn podcast. And I'm going to pop the fuck off. But here's what it is. So if we look at Brogan Walker's record, she has not won any fights in the UFC.
So is this just a fight to make Yasmin Lucindo look good?
That's my thought.
Yeah.
right? Because Yasmin Lucindo,
is she like an up and coming fighter?
She
in
is.
the flyweight.
Yep, and she's known for knockouts. So this was a chance for her to like, okay, this is a fighter that's really not that great.
It was kind of like that, like. What you're saying is this was Jurassic Park. Let me feed the lamb to the T-Rex.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. They wanted a show for the audience, and for 3 rounds, Lucindo teed the fuck off on Brogan Walker. Now, I will say the one positive thing I will say about Brogan Walker.
She got a chin.
She's basically a fucking training dummy. You can punch her, and she's not gonna go down.
Pete Buttigieg would love her. Put her in a car.
I was absolutely impressed with her ability to take a punch. But let me say this one thing. If taking a punch gets you a main card event as a women's fighter, then why the fuck is Dana White's wife not the next contender? Yeah. Like, if that's the only qualification is that you can take a fucking punch.
It was a slap.
Okay, if the only a slap from Dana White is a punch from a fucking flyweight, dude. Yeah. If your only qualification is being fucking punchable, then why isn't Dana's wife in the Contender Series? This is what I need to fucking know. Because honestly, what the fuck did Brogan Walker bring to this fight?
A dog.
Yeah, she brought her fucking emotional support dog, dude. What the fuck? Now, I'm all in favor of having emotional support dogs for mental health. I support that cause. However, if you're a fucking professional fighter, you should not be getting into the ring to absorb punches if you have a crippling mental health problem. If you have a mental health problem severe enough that you need a dog, getting punched in the head is not the fucking medicine that you need. That's not to say I have anything against Brogan Walker as a person.
I don't even know who she is.
Exactly. I'm not here to say that mental health isn't important, because it is, but if mental health is that important to you that you have an emotional support dog, why the fuck is your job getting punched in the goddamn head?
Someone's got to do it.
That's not good for your mental health.
Yeah. CTE is a real thing.
CTE is a bitch, dude. But okay, so I'm not mad about Lucindo, but that fight was extremely boring. It was one of the least interesting fights of the year. And honestly, I had a hard time deciding between whether I was more disgusted with the Usman Tafa fight or that fight. It was such a hard time. These were honestly 2 of my least favorite fights of the entire year.
That's also, we haven't really had that many pet fights, have we?
No, we've been blessed with great fights. And so, it hurts that those 2 absolute fucking stinkers were on this card, because this was overall a very strong card. And I will even say the Carol Rosa-Norma Dumont fight, Dumont dominated the first 2 rounds, and then kind of foot off the gas, Rosa got the last round. But, again, that was okay, we've seen that a million times with women's fights. That wasn't anything, extraordinarily bad, and it's an important fight for the rankings. Yeah. That should be up there. I was excited to see Lucindo fight.
We talked about that. There's going to be a reason as to why. I'm assuming the reason was that Lucindo is probably, they want to get the face out. But if you have a fight that's detrimental to the rankings of the featherweight division, wouldn't you want to promote that? Specifically, because they were ranked fighters. Weren't they 8 and 9 or something? It was
let's see. So we have featherweight. No, this is featherweight. Am I tripping here? Oh, featherweight's down here. No, that's bantam. What the hell? Flyweight, strawweight. Do they not? What the fuck? Do they not have women's featherweight rankings listed on the UFC rankings page?
Is it a new
pound for pound?
Oh wait, there it is.
Featherweight, literally just.
Oh, featherweight and bantamweight are I think they're.
Oh, they're not fleshed out. Then why did they have numbers after? Oh no, Rosa is here. Carol Rosa is 9.
So they're they're one in the same
Oh, featherweight and bantamweight are.
Yeah, they basically made featherweight so Amanda Nunes could be a double champ. Well, no, actually they made featherweight because Cyborg was too big to fight. The bantam. I think it's 145.
But either way, so we have the number 9 and the number 13 fighters fighting on a prelim.
Right.
That's important for That person...
Maybe it's because of the featherweight division. Like, if they fought at featherweight, like, you would assume that.
Yeah, I have no clue what they're going to do. But realistically, that's moving Carol Rosa up for... Or Carol Rosa is now going down because she lost. But Dumont is now picked up to maybe she's fighting next to top 5. Right? That could be an opportunity for her. So, like, that's crazy to me that you have someone that is on the way up being sat down so fucking can't win a fight.
Is not even ranked, right? She's just like an up-and-coming fighter.
This was her first fight in the UFC. So we had somebody with her first fight, which is cool, versus somebody...
Where she fought before?
Let's take a look. So she's 14-5, so she does have some credibility. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is her second fight in the UFC. She did lose her first one.
What?
Yeah. So, like, this is a second fight. She's coming off a loss. They fed her someone that she should have absolutely fucking pounded into mincemeat.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's flyweight division?
That's flyweight. Maybe the UFC's website just has their fucking things wrong, dude. I don't know. Oh, no, that's flyweight. So if we look at...
Flyweight division is like...
Flyweight division is the one that's stacked. This is Alexa Grasso, Shevchenko, Jessica Andrade, who's going to be fighting soon. There's a lot of names in that. So, like, it's kind of weird that she's not even, like, remotely close to ranking. She's not sniffing the top 15. And she's fighting a girl with no wins. I shouldn't say girl because she's older than I am. A woman with no wins, except for on the Ultimate Fighter TV show. She didn't win. She didn't win the season.
Who won that season?
I don't know. But, like, it's incredible to me that she's been in or given the positions that she's been given. And if we look at her record, it's heinous. So it's 8-4, but most of that's before. So she's 2 losses in the UFC, 1 canceled fight. She lost to Juliana Miller by KO.
Oh, I think I remember that.
But they're literally setting her up and feeding her to young prospects to get, like, a name on the list.
Right.
But, like, God damn it, why are you getting a main event? Get the fuck out of here.
Well, not main event. She's on the main card.
Main card. Okay, sorry. Main card. But still, a pretty big card that a lot of people are going to be tuning into just because of the intrigue at the top of the heavyweight division.
Right.
So, like, to me, that was just absolute bonkers. The good news is that we don't have to talk about that shit anymore before I lose my fucking mind. And we are now on to what was a string of great fights back to back.
Yeah, I'm kind of mad.
With a little bit of controversy mixed in. So that'll be fun to talk about.
Rewatch some.
So Montel Jackson, Ronnie Yahya. Montel Jackson had an 8.5-inch reach advantage, and it showed. The way that he beat Yahya was that Yahya threw a punch, and Jackson literally looped his around the guy's arm and made contact with his face, and Yahya's fist was still a good 3 inches short.
Is that the old, like, I'm going to put my hand on your forehead? And you're gonna...
Pretty much, yeah. He's like, okay, short guy, come here. But Yahya was setting up that punch for the takedown and a level change.
Yeah.
And it was something that he had actually successfully done. So I want to give Yahya credit because, like, first off, he's fighting a guy way fucking bigger than him.
Yeah.
Montel Jackson has the longest reach in the bantamweight division, which I think is an interesting... like, his arms are incredibly long. Mm-hmm. Like, if you look at his picture, his arms are, like, off of the screen.
Yeah.
But he's got the longest reach in bantamweight. It's record-breaking. Like, in the history of the UFC, he has the longest reach in UFC. Guy's crazy long, very fast, very strong puncher, but also looked incredibly polished on the ground because Yahya's a very, very, very good wrestler. He got a hold of the leg, dragged him down. Jackson stayed calm, got out of it, and then Yahya went to set it up a second time, and Jackson made the adjustment.
Yeah.
And starched him out cold. Fantastic fight there. I think Montel Jackson's definitely a name to keep an eye out for in the bantamweight division. If we're looking at bantamweight, obviously that's a huge area of contention right now in the UFC.
Yeah.
With, obviously Aljo, Dvalishvili, O'Malley. He's not on the top 15 yet, but I could see him getting a chance to fight a ranked fighter in his next outing because he looked good. I wouldn't hate seeing him take on one of these.
Is he gonna be like? How would he do though? You think?
I mean,
they're all pretty good. Like at any given day,
that's the crazy thing.
At any given
all
day,
these guys
I feel
are good.
like from like Umar up, I feel like at any given day they could beat anyone.
Yeah, I mean, literally from 11 all the way to 1, we have fantastic fighters. I do think that a fight that interests me is Saeed Nurmagomedov. Now, he's not related to the other Nurmagomedovs. It's a common misconception.
Mm-hmm.
Not actually a wrestling guy. He's a striker.
Yeah.
I think that makes a very good fight. I think Saeed Nurmagomedov is a very good fighter. He's the 15th ranked guy right now after his most recent loss. I think he's a very good fighter. I think that's a good matchup for the two of them because they're both longer, taller guys who want to predominantly strike but have that ability to grapple when they need to.
Yeah.
So I think stylistically that would be a fun matchup for me to see. So Dana, I know you're listening. You actually probably left after that comment about your wife. But if you are still listening, maybe out of fucking rage, set that fight up. So if that fight gets called, we know that this motherfucker's definitely listening. And if there's a fucking hit squad outside of my house for that comment, we definitely know he's listening. But that literally popped into my head at like 3 a.m. the other night, and I couldn't get it out of my head. I literally couldn't sleep because I was laughing hysterically into a coughing fit. Terrible human being. The next fight, Ricky Glenn, Christos Giagos. I was absolutely shocked because when they built up Glenn, it was the idea that this guy is just like an iron chin.
Mm-hmm.
Giagos sat him down and reset him with one punch. So hit him, and then his body went limp mid-air, and he tagged him a second time on the way down. Now, what was interesting is Glenn tried to...
in real life. That's nuts.
It is. It's crazy. Because it's like the body is doing things, but it's not what your brain is told the body to do. And it's just like, oh, well, this is not what we're supposed to be doing.
In the middle of the street, two of my buddies, brothers, one's a boxer and one did mixed martial arts. And the boxer just pieced up his brother. Out, in. It was crazy.
But Ricky Glenn bounced off the mat, basically, and that woke him up. And so he tried to protest that finish, but I had talked to you about this, and we thought the finish was a good finish. Like, that was good for the ref to step in then.
Yeah.
He didn't.
No, he was out.
Yeah, like, there was no doubt. That body went limp. There was literally no reaction.
The
he
lights
woke
were
up
on,
when...
no one was home.
Right, he woke up when he hit the canvas.
What?
Yeah, he was looking around like, I don't understand why that fight was stopped. I'm like, dude, do you not realize you just got absolutely starched? He had no clue what happened. But
just that the ground can't cause a fumble, the mat can't snap you back into reality.
Right. A mat cannot wake you up. Now, speaking of controversial finishes, this next fight, I am wanting to say that this was a first round knockout.
Oh, yeah. I went and watched this one. Yeah, I agree with you. If you're gonna call Ricky Glenn out, then I think you're gonna call Jeremiah Wells out too.
So the only difference in my mind, the only way to defend the decision, is that technically Wells wasn't unconscious, but he was no longer making an effort to defend himself in an intentional and
You've seen people
way.
the fights get called for less than that.
Yeah, so Semmelsberger came in, and pretty much right off the bat, Wells came in really hot and just like almost arrogantly with his chin up.
Yeah, he was leading with his head.
Yeah, which is just not good against a guy who's known for his huge knockouts. And I honestly believe that Semmelsberger knocked him out in round 1.
The one thing that you can say, though, is if he did get knocked out, how come he wasn't able to do it again?
I mean, he did put him on the canvas in round 2. He did put him on the canvas. It's either 2 or 3, but he did it a second time. So, like, there's definitely an argument to be made, like, oh, yeah, sure, like, he was eventually able to find him. But he was groping around with his arm outstretched and his head facing the other direction and just happened to grab a leg. Like, I think, and honestly, it was, like, wildly reaching around. That's not defensive. He's still getting hammered at this point. And then he reaches out and is like, the arm is one way, the head's the other way. So you can't even say that that's intelligent defense because you're not looking. Right? You're just blindly hoping that you grab something and can hang on for dear life. And that's what Wells did. He survived. And then on his ground game looked very polished. I will give him that. But and this was also a split decision. I think the split decision was stupid. I do think that Wells won rounds 2 and 3. But I think it was a first round knockout. And that was just really bad refereeing. So the 3 fights that had, if you will, controversial finishes, either the fighter says so or the desk says so or we're saying so. The Ricky Glenn a knockout, Jeremiah Wells, and then the Brad Tavares Bruno Silva one. If we look at those 3 fights, they were 3 very different situations. We both agree that Ricky Glenn was completely out.
Yep.
I think Jeremiah Wells, while not being out, was no longer defending himself, and the ref should have stepped in. But then when we look at the Brad Tavares Bruno Silva fight, I think that they ended that fight too early. So what's different in Brad Tavares' defense? So Brad Tavares got hit hard and went down and definitely was in trouble.
Yep.
Definitely was in trouble. He reached out and grabbed Silva. But the difference in my mind, so if I'm saying...
You can't make two... You can't make 2 completely different calls on that.
Yeah, you can't make 2 completely different calls on that, but also...
Well, I'm assuming they were different refs.
They were different referees.
Right, so different refs have...
All 3 fights had different referees. So I went back and double-checked the ref for each fight, just because I'm like, if it's the same guy, that at least is consistency. If it was the same guy between Glenn and Tavares, that's consistency. I have no issue with that.
Yeah.
But they were all 3 different refs. Tavares, though, the difference in his grabbing Silva versus Wells grabbing Semmelsberger is that Tavares was looking at Silva and posturing himself correctly, not reaching out wildly back behind him with his head turned the other way.
Right.
I think Tavares was absolutely in trouble. I do think the punch by Silva was very damaging, but there's no way in hell you let Wells continue that long in a less advantageous position. I wouldn't say that. Okay, a more critical position than Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares was on his back, but he had the cage behind him. He had his head up, facing Silva. He had his hands up, and then he reached for the leg. So he was making an effort to pull Silva into him so that he wasn't getting... Like, he was already preparing for ground and pound, and the ref stepped in as soon as he had grabbed him.
Or was it because he wasn't defending his face?
That's the only thing I can think of is that maybe the ref thought, oh, his hands are down, and was like, I'm not putting anything on the ref there. I think that was an early finish, sure, but like based on where his angle was, based on what he could see, I'm actually not blaming that one on the ref, because if he doesn't see that hand go down and shoot and like make that intentional grab, if Tavares had the ref that Wells had, Tavares gets a chance to fight that out. Yeah. And Semmelsberger gets the win there.
Right.
And I think that's a situation you never want to find yourself in a card where you have these wild inconsistencies from fight to fight.
Right.
In situations that are fairly similar, Wells was able to escape the round and then come back much more centered and controlled in 2 and 3 and take the victory. I think Tavares either needed to be given that chance or Semmelsberger needed to be given that win.
Right.
And that was a tough one for me to see, because I love Matthew Semmelsberger. I hyped up this fight before. I was big on Matthew Semmelsberger, not just because I'm also a Matt, but I thought that looking at his knockouts, this guy is an absolute power puncher, and he is gonna be, in my opinion, a problem. Yeah. He is very polished. I hated to see him get robbed of what I thought was an extra win. That really kills me, because that could mess up the trajectory for him, right? Because he goes from what should be 12-4 to 11-5. He should have 7 wins by knockout, not 6. And then if we look at who he's beaten, he's lost to Morano, who's a ranked fighter. He hasn't really beaten any ranked fighters, but this could have been an opportunity for him. A win here changes his trajectory, gives him maybe a top 15 fight in his next fight.
Did he say anything?
I haven't seen anything. He doesn't strike me as a big...
complainer?
Yeah, he doesn't also strike me as a big Twitter guy. Yeah. So it's tough, because a lot of these fighters are just
I'm assuming someone probably asked him about it.
I didn't see any of the any interviews, so I'm not sure. I think that a lot of people just kind of accepted and were like, okay, cool. But he seemed to be in total cruise control until like midway through the second round.
Yeah.
Because he knocked him. I think the second round he knocked him down again. But Wells was just very effective with his ground game, and his defense was solid, much better in the second round. But it was absolutely crazy.
I mean, that's another.
It's an absolute banger of a division.
Yeah, where like it's very. I would say probably from like 7, and that's Stephen Thompson. I'm giving him a.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some of these names though that are below Neil Magny has. Is that Hands of Steel? No, this is the Haitian Sensation, different guy. No, that's Jeff Hands of Steel Neal. Jeff Neal's a solid fighter. He just fought Shavkat Rakhmonov. That was a great fight.
Yeah.
So Jeff Neal's a fighter. I don't hate Sean Brady, 15-1. His only loss was to Bilal Muhammad, who's a top guy. So I don't hate Sean Brady either. Vicente Luque, good fighter. Neil Magny, I'd say he's kind of on the way down. But if we go down this list, you still have Jack Della Maddalena, who's on his way up. That's a big prospect coming up. He's at 13 right now. Have you ever seen Michel Pereira fight?
I think so. Who did he fight last?
Let's see.
We just watched him, didn't we?
I think it was a different guy. He's had a couple fights canceled. I talked about him, but he had a fight canceled. So he did fight Ponzinibbio. But he is. Have you ever seen? Why am I forgetting the name of it? It's Brazilian like dance fighting.
No.
He has got some absolutely insane fights. I think he's a very exciting fighter. Why can't I remember what that's called? Capoeira. Duh, he's a capoeira fighter. If you haven't seen it, it's one of the most fascinating things ever. This guy does like shit that dude, I'm so bad with names right now. What is happening? My brain is just not functioning. Guy used to do Superman punches all the time. Tiny Canadian. St. Pierre.
Oh, yeah, Drew St. Pierre.
So, all the crazy, like, jumping off the cage stuff, this guy does way crazier things.
Oh, really?
He's done a backflip in the middle of a fight to kick an opponent.
Oh.
So, like, we're talking just wild athleticism, not the... I don't think he's ever going to get a title shot, but very entertaining to watch. He's an older guy. He's got quite a few fights on his record, but a very entertaining guy to watch. And then Daniel Rodriguez on his way up as well, 17-3. Or way up or way out? He's been around for a while, hasn't he? I feel like I've definitely seen this guy. Yeah. He's been around for a bit.
Oh, was he the guy that... Oh, yeah, he was the guy... Wait, go up. He was the guy that wasn't he the guy that Jing Liang fought that he wasn't supposed to fight, like he went up?
Yeah. Yep, that's right.
Jing Liang almost won.
Yep. I do remember that.
He should have won.
But yeah, this guy, crazy tattoos.
Yeah, definitely someone you take home to mom.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the cage on his lats.
That's kind of lit.
It is. That's actually a pretty sick look. I'm not going to lie. But scary dude. The reason I thought he was younger than he actually was, but then the tattoo says 1986, so he's older than I thought he was. But he had just fought Neil Magny. Neil Magny still around, 27-11. I mean, this guy, his last loss was Gilbert Burns, but that's not really one to be upset about. Gilbert Burns is a crazy man. Yeah, he's up there. But that's a great division too. But I think that would have given him Semmelsberger some shots. Now those shots are going to go to Jeremiah Wells, whether he deserves them or not. I think he was knocked out, but so be it. Another controversial thing here. In watching the replay, it's not really controversial, but I know Bobby Green was upset. The no contest.
Where's my money?
Yeah. So Bobby Green.
This fight that told us nothing.
We highlighted this one because this one was going to tell us whether Paddy the Baddie was legit or not.
If he was a baddie?
Right. Is he actually a baddie or is he just satty? Who knows? But Jared Gordon, obviously that was the really close fight the last time out. The controversial finish. With Bobby Green, though, what happened is, so Bobby Green, if you don't know southpaw, Jared Gordon is traditional. One of the dangers when you're boxing southpaw and traditional, especially in UFC, is you have that tendency to bump heads. And that's exactly what happened. Bobby Green went to throw an unorthodox punch, which he's known
He
for.
was throwing his left.
Yeah, he was throwing his left, but it kind of looked like he was trying to bring the elbow in. So
you
like
don't really
he
see
like
his hand, you just see his head.
yeah, so like his elbow was up by his head, the punch was extended, but he thought he hit with elbow, but he fully hit Jared Gordon in the temple with the crown of his head.
Yeah.
Opened up a cut right there, knocked Gordon to the ground. Bobby Green rallied to finish. But because the headbutt resulted in Jared Gordon being unable to continue, it was ruled a no contest. I do think that's the right call. We've complained about things being ruled KOs when they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like, I think if there's an injury that prevents people from continuing, like, I don't know, breaking your fucking leg, then that shouldn't be ruled a KO. That should be ruled a no contest.
Right.
And this is a perfect example of that being ruled a no contest. You can't continue a fight on a broken leg.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah.
Absolutely ludicrous that the method is could not continue due to no contest due to could not continue.
Yeah.
And yet they're like, hey, Conor McGregor, that's a fucking KO, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Even Sean
O'Malley, Conor McGregor, those should not be. And so, like, when they make those arguments, I'm 100% on their side.
What about, like, someone who can't go because they, like the doctor rules it, like for example, like Nate Diaz when he
with
fought,
all the cuts.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, you can't."
The doctor won't let him. That's tough. I think. But the cuts, I think, are different because they are a result of the actual fight within the rules, right? So, like, within the expectation of the sport, you can expect there to be cuts.
Yeah, but when you consider about a broken leg.
Not necessarily. You don't expect a broken leg.
That's right.
But think of how many fights go on where, like, that's not within the realm of reasonable expectation.
Right.
I would argue.
Yeah. Okay. I see where you're at.
Yeah. Like, the same thing happened
I just feel like you
get
get into, like, a real... I feel you get in a real gray area.
I mean, if a guy doesn't tap to an arm bar and his arm gets broken, I don't think that's a no contest. That's within a reasonable expectation. You should tap to the fucking arm bar because it's not worth getting your shit snapped off.
Right.
It's taking a step back and your leg breaking. That's kind of a freak thing, right? Anderson Silva's leg break.
Yeah.
That was a freak thing.
Yeah, that was gross.
Right? Absolutely heinous. Both of those gave me the heebie-jeebies. That was disgusting. But those, I would, like a freak occurrence like that, like an incidental headbutt.
Yeah.
Freak occurrence. That's outside of the rules, right?
Well, I don't know if they, do they call it incidental, or do they, it seems like they were...
It was incidental contact. They weren't saying that Bobby Green initiated with his head, because you could tell his fist was out. So he was leading with the hand. It's just one of those things that happens. Why does he get paid? I mean, I think he gets paid.
No, he hasn't got paid yet.
He didn't even get, a show. He's not going to get paid for a win.
Oh, maybe that's what he was bitching about.
Yeah, I'm expecting, he's probably where's my, bonus for a knockout? Dude, it wasn't a knockout.
Right.
And, it was an accident, but he should have gotten paid to show, at least. I think both guys get paid to show. But, I mean, he wants his win bonus.
Well, because he was I've been headbutted. Look at, he was on, what was that guy, Helwani? He was on Helwani's show, and he was like, look at my scars. He's like, you know how I got these scars? Headbutts.
You know how I got these scars? My father was a fiend. But no, I think in a situation like that, there was no good way to resolve that. That was the only fair way to resolve that. It was entirely incidental, and you can't say that it didn't impact the fight. But again, if we're making that ruling, that opens up a whole host of cases. A bunch of people started taking to Twitter, being like, "But what about this? What about this? What about this?" I think
what about eye pokes.
Yeah, eye pokes. I think. I mean, look at the one with O'Malley that got turned to a no contest, right? And that's fair, right? That guy could not continue. The doctor wouldn't let him continue.
It was against Cheeto Vera, wasn't it? No, Cheeto was when he broke his leg.
Yeah. That was the next fight back.
Yeah.
Which was just dude, are you fucking kidding me? And then he got the Petr Yan fight. Yeah, he had, or no,
it
he had
his next fight back, but
it was.
Might have been.
Let's find out. It was pretty close, but it was one of those situations where it was are you kidding me? I'd be so pissed if I worked my way back from an injury, and then, no contest. Go fuck yourself. All right then. Let's see. So that was Oh no, he fought Pyro. but it was against Munoz. So that was but like that actually kind of worked out. So he actually had a few afterwards. I didn't even realize this. He beat Almeida because he fought a lot.
Yeah.
When he came back, he fought in March, beat Almeida. He fought in July.
Yeah, the kid
beat
gets
Moutinho.
no name. There was the kid that basically pulled up the street.
Yep.
He was like legit.
Who did a great job of getting punched.
Yeah.
A la Brogan Walker, if you will. Then you had Paiva that he knocked out. And then you had the no contest with the eye poke. But that actually kind of worked out in his favor because he was able to turn around and get the Petr Yan fight.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, that kind of sucks. But, hey, maybe for Bobby Green, things turn around, right? Because he did look sharp. He did look good. We didn't see a lot of them. But what we did see was good. So I won.
Would you say that he was gonna win that fight?
Way too early to tell.
Yeah.
Way too early to tell. I mean, we're talking at the end of the first round.
Yeah.
I had Bobby Green winning the round. But Jared Gordon's wrestling is too good to consider him out, right? And with those wrestling striker, especially against like veteran strikers, usually you see them wait around to kind of gauge the timing, and then they start making their shots.
Yeah. I mean, do they rematch it then?
I wouldn't hate a rematch. I think that Bobby Green.
I feel like that's one of those things that you could be like, hey, like, there's a lot of fights that are being
canceled left, right, and center,
and they're like, they didn't really do anything, unless Jared, because of the headbutt, and you couldn't continue.
I mean, he was knocked out, and he took some big fucking shots. So like, he might be in concussion protocol because he did take a lot of big shots afterwards. And, like, credit to Bobby Green for getting right on him and finishing the fight.
Yeah.
And so, like, I can understand why he's pissed off, but the only reason he was in a position to finish was the headbutt, which is just unfortunate. We talked about the controversy in Tavares Silva. So that brings us to our main event. And this was, we already stated what happened here. Blaydes decided he was going to go shot for shot, toe-to-toe with Sergey Pavlovich, which is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And as we saw, Pavlovich made Curtis Blaydes look fucking stupid. Curtis Blaydes is one of the biggest choke artists in the heavyweight division. Curtis Blaydes, to me, is the ultimate gatekeeper. He's got some pretty solid wins. I mean, he's beaten Jairzinho Rosenstrike. He's beaten... he did lose to Derek Lewis, but, like, he loses to big punchers. Yeah. So he's lost to Lewis. He's lost to Pavlovich. He's lost to Ngannou. And he's lost to... he beat Alistar Overeem, which I think is pretty good. He did beat Mark Hunt. What was the other one? Did he lose to Ngannou twice? He did lose to Ngannou twice. 2 times knocked out by Ngannou.
Oh.
1 time knocked out by Derek Lewis. 1 time knocked out by Pavlovich. And it's because he makes dumb decisions against premier strikers in the heavyweight division.
Typically, how you get knocked out is by making a dumb decision.
Yeah, I mean, he tried to stand and fight, and his ground game is immaculate.
It's like you're wondering. I bet you're wondering how I got here.
Yeah. But for him, who knows what's next? I actually would love to see Blaydes versus Tom Aspinall run back. So if you're not familiar, the Blaydes Aspinall fight ended another controversial way, right? So Tom Aspinall's knee exploded. Basically, just the ligaments didn't want to do the ligament thing anymore. That was 8 months ago. He had the surgery. Seems to be pretty successful. We watched a video from the doctor. The doctor saying that they didn't have major concerns about the ACL.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that Aspinall comes back. Dana hinted at there being big things for the London card that he's prepping for the summer. I do think that Aspinall is going to make a return there. I would not hate an Aspinall Blaydes rerun because I still think Blaydes is the top guy in the division. He just needs to stop doing dumb shit against boxers. Like, he's not a boxer. He's got
a better guy that day.
Yeah, I mean, he is a good puncher, but I think he and Aspinall match up really well. Both of them aren't the best on their feet. Mm-hmm. They're solid. They're not like world-class power like Sergey Pavlovich or Francis Ngannou, right?
Yeah.
But they're great on their feet, and they do have that wrestling ability. I wouldn't be shocked to see either of them, or to have them run it back. That would be, I think, a really good fight, just because of how the last time it ended for Aspinall. I think that would be a way to answer those questions about who really deserves that run of the division.
Yeah, but the question is what happens with heavyweight now. We talked about it before we went on the air, but
yeah,
I saw some things about John Jones and
Sergey Pavlovich.
Yeah, Pavlovich fighting because if Stipe is,
I think Stipe is retired. The dude has not he doesn't have any interest in it. It just doesn't seem like his heart's in it, and he's an old heavyweight.
Probably wouldn't be in it if I had to fight John Jones.
I mean, but it's the one thing that's really frustrating, right? Is so I'm not the biggest John Jones guy. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's a shitbag of a human being, but
he found Christ, man.
Look, still, my point still remains. John Jones and Stipe would be a great fight. If John Jones wins, all the John Jones fans are going to act like he beat 2017 Stipe.
Right.
Which is just fundamentally untrue. You're beating old man, basically retired ex-firefighter Stipe.
Right.
You're not beating prime Stipe. So what the fuck does that even prove? If Stipe wins, they're going to argue that, John Jones isn't a natural heavyweight. So, not a big deal. And Stipe is one of the greatest of all time heavyweights. So, to me, the fight is a great idea in theory. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it would be just getting numbers. Like I said, I don't think Stipe really has anything to lose with fighting. I don't think it takes away his
legacy as how dominant he was in the heavyweight division for how long he was dominant in the heavyweight division. I mean it's something. I mean, he's got a list of names. But if we're going back, this is not
who's who.
Yeah, this is not the oh my god, dude. Just looking at this, it's actually pretty crazy. But this is not 2017 Stipe Miocic. Right? This is an older rundown.
It seemed like after that last Ngannou fight, it seemed like he was done.
That's the impression that I got. I was like, okay, he's retired.
He was passing the torch.
Yeah. He's like, okay, this is your division. But then UFC didn't have that guy anymore, right? Yeah. And so, now they're, trying to force this to happen to make it a thing when it really doesn't need to be. You have exciting guys in the division. Pavlovich, I don't think actually stands a chance against Jones, if I'm being entirely honest.
He's going to take it to the ground.
Jones isn't stupid enough or arrogant enough.
Yeah.
Or whatever you want to say.
He's a really smart fighter.
Right. Whatever you want to say about him as the person is the decisions that he makes are not great, but in the cage, he makes great decisions.
Yeah.
His fight IQ is high enough that he's not going to try and stand toe-to-toe with a guy who has more power than him.
And he's pretty, I would say he seems to be a little bit more clear-headed now than when he did try to be the showman.
Fucking coke brain.
Yeah, when he did try to be a showman. And because he has done stupid fucking shit.
Yeah.
In the ring, too.
Definitely. But I think that was younger, more arrogant him.
Yeah.
Looking ahead. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just dying real quick. Looking ahead to next week, I do think that there are some exciting fights on this card. But again, this is one that I looked at, and the only name that I knew on here off the top of my head was Son Yudong and Julian Erosa were the only two names that immediately clicked. I remember seeing fights from them.
Yeah.
Those would be interesting fights. Both of them, I think, are great fights. But actually, if we run through this card just real quick, I don't have anything to say about the women's fights. Shocking. But even with the bantamweight bout, we have Brian Kelleher, Journey Newson. I don't think that's a great one, but both guys have finishes on the feet and on the ground. Yeah. You got well-rounded guys. I feel like the cards we've gotten lately have been guys that are
good stylistic matchups,
right? That
prove to be good fights,
right? Whereas these are more well-rounded fighters. You may not know them; they're not household names, but I think they're going to provide a very, very interesting fight. One that I would want to highlight is even at flyweight. We talked about how flyweight isn't really that big punching power. We actually said feather, but we meant fly. Flyweight, you don't really know for those knockouts, but we do have Charles Johnson fighting. He's got 6 wins by knockout on 13 victories. So that's roughly half his fights have ended with him getting a knockout. Against Cody Durden, another guy, 14 fights, 6 wins by knockout. Yeah. So again, we're talking guys that do have that knockout power in their hands. That one I have circled in the prelims is one that I do think will be genuinely interesting. The featured prelim is a big boy fight. This is Martin Boudet, or I don't really know how to say it, but we'll call him Martin Booty because there's a big dude, and Jake Collier. If you haven't watched Jake Collier fights, you're missing out.
Yeah.
This is a guy who just wants to throw punches and be big. This is a very big boy. He is 13-8. So he has 5 knockouts and 4 submission wins. So weirdly enough, he's one of those guys where when you get to the ground, he's not unaccomplished. So of his 13 wins, 9 of them have finishes, and 7 of those finishes have been first round. But this is a guy that's going to want to stand toe-to-toe against Martin Booty, who is... Now, I think these are coming from other divisions. I don't know a ton about him, but looking at just his stats page, right? He's on a 10-fight win streak, and he's got 7 wins by knockout.
They're going to stand up.
They're going to stand up, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Collier tried a little leg trip action and tried to work the submission game. If they last that long.
Right.
I don't think they're getting out of the first round.
First round. Calling it now.
Moving on to the
fight will not go the distance.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there aren't odds for not going the distance. I'm pretty sure they've just accepted that fact. Heavyweight, you will not get great odds for them going the distance. Welterweight bout. This one I think is really exciting. This is Josh Quinlan. Maybe not a name that you are familiar with. So this guy is 6-0. He has 6 finishes, 3 of which have come in the first round. This is a guy that knows how to work the finish. He's fought 1 time in the UFC, so you probably missed it. But first round knockout back in August of 2022. Weirdly enough, this is a fight that I saw. I was impressed then. And I've got this guy circled. He's gone up against Trey Waters. Originally, I think this was a different fight. So I'm hesitant to give this one my stamp because I feel like every time I do that and they sub in a fighter, then the fight gets canceled anyway.
Yeah.
But if this does go through, Trey Waters is 7-1, 3 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. So out of 7 victories, he's got 6 finishes. These are guys that have, between them, almost 100% finish rate in 14 fights. That's pretty crazy. So 13 finishes in 14 fights between the two of them. Don't expect that one to go to the distance either. And that could just be because they cancel it because God hates me. I'm not sure what it is, but that's just the way it is. And then heavyweight bout, Waldo Cortez Acosta. This one's actually sneaky. So he's got 9. He's 9-0. He's 4 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. So again, more than 50% finish rate. But a guy that can actually wrestle fairly successfully.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting where you go into Marcos Rogerio de Lima, who is 29-1. But 14 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, and 15 first-round finishes.
This is a young guy going against
a vet.
A vet.
A guy who wants to put him to sleep in round 1.
Yeah.
20 wins, 15 of which have come in the very first round. That's absolutely incredible. I'd be shocked to see that one go the distance. Although if it does, it'll be because Acosta hits him with the lay and pray.
Yeah.
Always a possibility, but I don't think De Lima is a slouch in the wrestling department considering that he has submission victories on his belt. I think that's at least going to be more interesting than the Usman Tafa fight because we have a guy who actually knows how to fight off his back.
Right.
So this one, I would definitely say make sure you're in your seat for that. And honestly, every single one of these fights on the main card, the only one that I don't really have a ton to say about is Cody Brundage, Rodolfo Vieira, but of course that one's just going to be insane just because I don't highlight it.
Yeah.
But the Julian Erosa fight, Julian Erosa is a veteran. If you haven't seen him fight before, this is a guy who gets it done any way he can.
Mm-hmm.
So 28 wins. He's 28-11. He has 28 wins. He has 23 finishes. This is a guy who gets it done.
Yep.
He does not mess around. So Julian Erosa, very established veteran, going against a first-time fighter in Fernando Padilla. I don't know.
Doesn't even have a picture.
Doesn't even have a picture on the UFC website. 14-4. First fight in the UFC. Another one of those guys coming up from Mexico, but this is a guy who does have He's on a 2-fight win streak, 4 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission. So, again, out of 14 wins, 12 of those are finishes.
Yeah.
We're talking an extremely high finish percentage on almost every single one of these fights.
It's going to be a good...
This is going to be a low-key great card. You may not know the names, but I'm really hoping that after this card, you do know the names. Because these guys, I think, are going to turn it on. Now, the only people... again, but even talking... So, I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Because, who cares what I say? Rodolfo Vieira is 8-2 with 8 finishes. 100% finish rate. Cody Brundage is honestly the only reason I'm not talking about this fight more is because I don't really think Cody Brundage is great. But if we're looking at sheer finishing percentage, 8 fights, 7 finishes. These guys are here to finish fights. It's absolutely incredible to me. And again, here we go. We have the guy with the lowest percentage of finishes still has over a 50% finish rate.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And that's going to be the...
Seems like this is to set up something with the middleweights. Just to see if they shake up the rankings, maybe?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of middleweight fights. There's bantamweight fights. There's heavyweight fights. There's welterweight fights. Like, it's got a little bit of everything. There's one bantamweight fight. Not really going to shake up the standings at all. There's women's bantamweight. But again, yep. The heavyweight fights will be interesting. But again, these are guys that are going to fight for these finishes. So yeah, middleweight.
There's 2 bantamweight fights.
There is bantamweight, yeah, the main event. Yeah. Duh, I was like, I'm missing. There was definitely something with bantamweight, but middleweight, this is going to be fascinating. Michael Osheshek, and I probably said that wrong, but I tried anyway. 14 finishes out of 18 fights.
It's going to be a good card.
This guy has 13 knockouts, 10 first-round finishes. Again, I don't think many of these fights are going the distance. And with the way that the judging has been, this is exactly what we need. We need a good palate cleanser where we're getting with finishes and we're not sitting there with judges. Of course, now that I've said that, we know that each and every single one of these is going to...
The distance, so bet that.
Every single fight is going the distance because I've hyped them up. But then Son Yudong, the main event, Son Yudong, Ricky Simon. This is super important for the bantamweight division. You have the 8 and 10 guys. I think the next fight for them that makes sense if we look at the rankings here. I would love to see the winner of this fight go on and fight Chito Vera, because Chito Vera needs something. Right now he's at 5. Petr Yan has a fight.
If he doesn't get Dominic Cruz or Rob Font.
Yeah, I mean I think he's beaten Rob Font. I think he's beaten Dominic Cruz.
Did he beat Munoz?
I don't know.
Because that could be a fight, too.
That could be. I wouldn't hate that either. There's a lot of good fights to be made in bantamweight. Not that I have seen. I actually wouldn't hate Munoz-Cruz rematch, but just throwing that out there.
Yeah, Cruz is the only one that hasn't had a fight.
Yeah, Cruz hasn't fought in a while. I don't know what's up with him. That's the kind of the domino to fall in the middle of the rankings. He's smack dab in the middle. But they need to figure out something to do with him. I mean, he's 24-4. His last fight, he lost to Chito. So I don't think he's going to be fighting Chito. Rob Font is coming off of a pretty dominant win there. So I would expect Rob Font to fight up, if anything.
Maybe one of those guys gets Cruz.
I think that whoever wins this fight should either get Cruz or Chito.
Yeah, because if you're Dong and you win, getting Cruz doesn't really do much for you.
Right, that's 8 to 7.
Vera or
but going up to 5, a top 5 fight, even 6, that's still.
And there was also talks about, like, I think O'Malley mentioned it. He was like, Petr Yan and Chito Vera might not be. Like, Petr Yan fighting anyone from 5 to 7, or then even having one of those guys that comes off, like, that's gonna dictate, like, kind of like the middle of.
Yeah. We need to figure out like 4 down in this division right now, because it's pretty messy. I mean, obviously, we need to figure out everything in this division. But the big thing, obviously, looking ahead, is how does the Sterling Cejudo matchup change this entire division? Yeah. We're waiting for that domino to fall.
I don't think it's going to really change much, because I just don't think Cejudo's going to.
If Sterling wins...
I would be very, very shocked if Cejudo
I don't know, man.
Sterling coming off a 3-year layoff.
I don't know. He's such a dominant force, though. And he's good at what Sterling is good at, And Sterling has gotten to where he is because he hasn't fought guys that are good at what he's good at.
Yeah.
And so that's the only thing that I can say. Now, that's not to say that, Sterling's a slouch, because he's proven that he's not a slouch. There was that controversy in how he won the belt, but he's definitely proven that he deserves it. No one has been able to beat him at his game.
Yeah, he really hasn't fought. I mean, he beat Peter Yan, but Peter Yan hasn't really done much since he lost to Sterling.
Right.
And then he fought the ghost of fucking Dillashaw. And now he's getting
And then he's getting Cejudo.
Off the couch.
Yeah, but Cejudo doesn't look like he's gotten off a couch. If he has gotten off a couch, then I need to buy me that couch, because Cejudo looks lean and mean.
He did a couple weeks. That's because he's in camp, but before he wasn't that great.
I mean, I don't know. Cejudo's a great champ. I think it's going to be a great fight.
I just don't think the 3-year layout, you're going to have ring rust.
I mean, I said the same thing about John Jones, and look how wrong I was.
Yeah, but you put Cejudo and John Jones in the same. John Jones didn't come off a 3-year layoff.
He was off for quite some time, though.
I don't think it was a year.
It was longer than that.
Look what happened to Connor.
Yeah. I mean, either way, next week, it's not going to break any divisions. It's not going to do anything crazy.
Right.
But those are all solid fights that you should definitely be checking out. It's hard for me to isolate just individual fights because I'm excited for all of them. But if I had to look at one, I would say tune into the co-main event, which was elevated, so it wasn't really a co-main event, but Osheshek, Julian Erosa. I have Josh Quinlan on the main card that you should look at. And I do love the Johnson, Durden, and Bidet Collier fights in the prelims.
You know what is interesting? If you go back to the rankings for a second, and you go to the featherweight, right? So that is a division that is fucked with Volkanovski at the top.
Yep.
Because it doesn't even sound like Max Holloway came off that win against
Arnold
Allen, and it doesn't even sound like they're even considering, no matter what happened, like considering him for a title contention.
Right, which is crazy because you know that Arnold Allen would have been set up for the next shot.
Yeah, but that's what they wanted.
Right, that's what
he might even get it. Just like
because they're like, dude, look, something's got to go.
He's talking. Max always talking about he brought up fighting Connor. He talked about he tweeted his house on boxing.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because Holloway has lost 3 convincing fights to Volkanovski. Volkanovski has done very well 3 times. Yeah. One of those times is a little bit closer than the others, but let's be honest, Volkanovski is still undisputed. The best thing that could happen for the division is Yair Rodriguez winning. Again, it's one of those crazy situations.
And then Volkanovski moves up and
that sets
up. Or
Volkanovski
Volkanovski wins, and then he's like, I'm gonna move up anyway. He's gonna move up anyway to try to be double champ.
And then I would actually want to see Holloway versus maybe Ortega for the interim. Yeah, I wouldn't hate that. But that takes us to the end of this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Please, 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 even though you don't know the names, check out this card because I promise you it's going to be a good one. And if it's not, you can totally come back here and blame us in the comment section. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. It's up on the video graphic, but it is at TSG MMA Podcast. We are available also on Spotify and Podbean. Come check out the pod. Let us know what you think. Adios.
Peace.